VK168, Pain or Gain? Disclaimer, this video does not cover how to play the VK168, only whether or not you should buy it. As with any purchase, careful consideration should be given as to whether or not the item bought is good for you. This video will help you decide whether the VK168 is a worthwhile purchase. The VK168 is a premium Tier 8 German heavy tank. As of the time of writing, it can be obtained through spending gold, real money, or the recent Codebreaker event. This video will be split into 3 categories: effectiveness of the tank, the fun factor of the tank, and its ease of use. Effectiveness will have 3 subcategories: armor, firepower, and mobility. Each subsection can have a score from 0 to 10, with the final effectiveness score being an average of the scores of all 3 subsections. First, we will look at armor. For the hull, the VK168 has 180, 139, and 100 mm for the front, sides, and rear respectively. On the turret, it has 235, 160, and 100 mm for the front, sides, and rear. The armor stats look extremely good on paper compared to other tanks, but we will have to do real-world testing to confirm this. In battle, the 168 has incredibly strong front armor. However, it has 2 large weak spots: the lower glacis between the tracks and the commander's cupola on top of the turret. The lower glacis is incredibly weak and can be penetrated by even the weakest Tier 7 guns. The cupola fares a little better, but can still be penetrated with careful aim nonetheless. The front of the VK168's turret can also be penetrated by extremely high pen guns or premium ammo. Angling your turret does prevent most penetrations in this area, but not entirely. Despite this, the 168's turret is still very strong and can withstand lots of enemy hits. Overall, I would give the VK168 an 8 out of 10 in the armor category. 1 point has been deducted for the lower glacis and cupola weak spots, and another for the penetrability of the turret front. Now we move on to firepower. The tank has a 12.8 cm or 128 mm gun, dealing 460 damage using standard AP at 220 mm of penetration with a 16.3 second reload time. Nice, but is it nice enough? The 12.8 cm has respectable penetration and damage, allowing it to hit the enemy hard. However, it is extremely weak on fire rate, taking over a quarter of a minute to reload. This means that most of your time will be spent trying to avoid damage rather than dealing it. As well as having a long reload time, the gun also has an average accuracy. It aims quickly compared to similarly sized guns of other Tier 8 heavy tanks, but still lacks in terms of minimum dispersion. It will suffice for close-ranged brawling where accuracy is not that great of a factor, but is unable to reliably hit weak spots on enemies further than 100 meters away. Bruh. The VK168 earns a 7 out of 10 in the firepower category, losing points for accuracy and reload time, but mostly just accuracy as it is unable to target small weak spots or far-away enemies reliably. The initial dispersion is also quite large, meaning that shooting on the move, even at close range, is not 100% reliable. Mobility is obviously not the 168's strong suit. It only goes 20 km an hour in the forward direction and 15 in reverse. The low top speed means that you will take a while to reach the front lines, and the battle will usually be in full swing by the time you arrive. If you're on the wrong side of the map, then you're out of luck. However, the 15 km an hour reverse speed is quite quick for any heavy tank, and allows you to quickly retreat behind cover after taking a shot. Another benefit is good acceleration. The 168 can quickly reach its 20 km an hour top speed in a few seconds, although I'm not sure how useful that is. Despite the poor speed, the 168 has a surprisingly high turn rate. Turning at almost 25 degrees per second, the VK168 is able to quickly face the opponent from the front and resist flanking. The enhanced turn speed also allows you to target multiple enemies across your field of view without exposing your weak spots for too long. The VK168 gets a 3 out of 10 in the mobility category. This is not very surprising as it is a heavy tank, but the top speed is still quite low for tanks of its category. However, the relatively quick reverse speed earns the tank 1 point, and the relatively quick turn speed, combined with the turret traverse, earns it another 2 points. After averaging the scores of all 3 categories, we have a total score of 6 out of 10 in the effectiveness category. The tank has very good armor, which makes it well suited to the heavy tank role. Its gun is also quite powerful, but is lacking in fire rate, reducing the damage output of the tank. The accuracy is okay, being good enough for the heavy tank role, but not much else. The poor mobility means that the VK-168 will not be able to reinforce allies at different locations, and is instead dependent on allies coming to it. This makes the vehicle a poor performer in solo operations. However, the 168 is incredibly potent if supported and covered by allies, and makes for a formidable breakthrough vehicle. Now we move on to fun factor, which is a measure of how fun or exciting a vehicle is to play. Fun factor will also have 3 subcategories: brawling, flanking, and supporting, each subcategory representing one of the 3 major playstyles. Again, the scale will go from 1 to 10 with all values being averaged for the total fun factor. Score is determined by how good a vehicle is in each one of those roles. Generally, the better a tank is, the more fun it will be to play. The fun factor category will also have weights, which are points given when a vehicle has a score of more than 7 in a subcategory. This way, a vehicle that is a 5 in all subcategories will not beat out a vehicle that is a solid 10 in one category and 0 in the others. The weight points for each category are equal to 10 minus the vehicle's score in that category. Weight points will get first priority when determining the fun factor of a vehicle. First is the brawling category, which is head-to-head combat in close proximity where the tanks are facing each other. This is a role generally suited for heavy tanks, and the VK-168 is no exception. The armor and firepower make for a great brawler that can strike fear into the enemy. However, the low top speed means that you'll be spending a good minute pressing nothing but the W key while you wait for the tank to arrive at the battlefield. As such, the VK-168 gets a 7 out of 10 in this category. It would have scored higher if 1. It was faster, and 2. If the gun reloaded more quickly. Unfortunately, looking at nothing for an entire minute is incredibly mind-numbing, and robs the vehicle of some of its points. The slow reload doesn't do the 168 any favors either. You'll spend more time waiting behind the wall than actually shooting. That being said, the feeling of bouncing the entire enemy team's shells and watching them retreat is exhilarating, and greatly helps the vehicle in this category. Next up is flanking, which is driving around to the sides or rear of the enemy. Circling the enemy at point blank range does not count. 1 out of 10, no explanation needed. The 168 gets 1 point due to its ability to turn relatively quickly compared to other German heavies, which helps it go around obstacles and hit the enemy's side. That's about it, however, and most heavy tanks have this maneuver in the bag, so the 168 isn't unique for having it or anything. Support is either spotting or sniping, as well as providing cover fire. Cover fire, unlike sniping, can occur at close range as well. The VK-168, being a heavy tank, has rather poor concealment, which when coupled with its size and average gun accuracy, make it a subpar sniper. However, making up for it, the 168 has a 250 meter spotting range, which makes it good at spotting frontline enemies as well as snipers in the back. That being said, it's still worse than a light or medium tank due to its slow speed. Cover fire is where the 168 will fare the best. The high damage means that enemies will be wary of driving out from behind cover, and your armor will make it hard for the enemy to get revenge damage should they do so. Unfortunately, the tank is hindered by its long reload, which gives the enemy ample time to peek out and shoot your allies. In this category, the 168 will earn itself a 4 out of 10. It does okay in a supporting role, but the numerous caveats limit its effectiveness. If you want a support vehicle, I advise using something else. Overall, the VK-168 gets a total score of 4 out of 10 in the fun factor category. Unfortunately, its low top speed and poor rate of fire sap too much life out of the thing to make it much fun. It's bearable the first few battles, but soon you'll wish you had a little, or rather a lot, more speed. Unfortunately, the 168 doesn't score high enough in any category to net itself some weight points, meaning that it will fare even worse when matched up to other tanks in that regard. Ease of use is also a 0 out of 10 scale. This measures how much thought has to go into using the tank. The VK168 is not a very noob-friendly tank. Its prominent weak spots require constant motion to stay out of the enemy's sights, and the average accuracy requires careful positioning to guarantee a hit. If you want a tank that can just rush the enemy and take all the hits, I would recommend the non-premium Tier 8 German heavies VK100.01P and Tiger II. The weak spots on those vehicles are smaller and harder to hit. If you want a faster vehicle for easier positioning, the Lau, or Lue in German I think, is a good choice. All in all, I would give the 168 a 3 out of 10 on the ease of use scale. The gun requires a bit of aiming to land consistent shots, the weak spots require careful positioning and constant movement, and the low speed make taking a position rather difficult if you don't know your way around already. So, should you buy the VK168? Is a tricky question. Having a high enough fun factor to make it desirable to some, but not to most. Prerequisites to buying the 168 are prior experience with heavy tanks and brawling, more than 5,000 battles, so no new players unfortunately, and patience. If you don't meet all the requirements, then you won't have much of a good time in this tank. If you like brawling in a well-armored tank, then this tank should be a good match. Collectors can also add this vehicle to their collection through purchasing it, but I would recommend waiting for an event to earn it if you're a collector. If you like high speed, fast-paced action, then you'll want to steer clear of this tank. The slow speed and poor fire rate will put you to sleep. If you don't like to be pressed up against the enemy, then I also wouldn't recommend this tank. In conclusion, the VK168 is a rather niche tank appealing to fans of highly armored brawlers. As a result, most people will likely not have much fun in it. That isn't to say the tank isn't unfun or terrible to play, it's just it doesn't shine in the fun factor area, which is what you want in a tank that you spend real money on.